If I had one takeaway from the reception to my video on Combattler V, it wouldn't be that my mecha videos still perform decently well, thank you so much for that, but every single comment on that video is someone simply not telling or requesting me, but urging me to finish Voltes 5. So for all 21 of the people who deeply insisted that I go through Voltes, this is for you. Voltes 5, or Super Electromagnetic Machine Voltes 5, is Tadao Nagahama's spiritual successor to Combattler V. The show aired in 1977, almost immediately after Combattler, due to its tremendous success. The approach Nagahama had in mind when creating Voltes is that he wanted a series with more drama that was elevated, so to speak, and as a result, Voltes 5 would become the first ever serialized anime, which is a crazy idea in of itself, offering a sprawling narrative that runs through the entire course of all 40 episodes. This is also the shortest entry in the Robot Romance trilogy as a result. After all, you can only do so much with that kind of storytelling. In Voltes 5, an alien race known as the Bosanians invade Earth with the intent to conquer it, and I know what you're thinking, but no, this show isn't just recycling the plot from Combattler V. Here's where Voltes 5 really kicks things up a notch. When the Bosanians arrive, they clash with the Earth Defense Force, which is an entire organization that specializes in these types of crises. Think the Science Patrol from Ultraman, but much bigger. I mean, even the designs kind of evoke that. But within the EDF lies the combiner robot itself, Voltes 5, which is made up of 5 different components, each having an individual pilot. We're introduced to the Go brothers, made up of Kenichi, Daijiro, and Hiyoshi. Kenichi leads the Voltes team. He starts off as a little naive and carefree, but over time, as the events of the story unfold, he learns to become a very headstrong individual, as being more level-headed as time goes on. Daijiro and Hiyoshi follow a similar development, but Daijiro is more spiritual as Hiyoshi is more of a genius. There's also Megami, daughter of Commander Oka, who also happens to be a ninja, so she can hold her own very well against the Bosanians whenever confronted with their schemes. As shown in episode 31, I say as I remain vague and leave it at that. And lastly, my favorite character in this show, Ippei. Ippei starts off as a pretty heartless cynic, always clashing with Kenichi given his narrow-mindedness that's rooted in trauma. I won't spoil anything, but he perceives death as this inevitable part of life, though in a way that's condescending. But as he endures further hardship, he grows to become much more sympathetic, sees further value in living things, becoming more understanding of life, and through his experiences with literal war, he really sticks up for his comrades and becomes very quick to place them before himself. It gets to a point where he's treating Kenichi, this person he's constantly at odds butting heads with, like his own brother, and that's just incredible. Right out of the gate, there's a very sizable difference in scale going from Combattler to Voltes. I've said before that Combattler already makes a very strong first impression, but Voltes manages to crank that by 11 by not just portraying an isolated case of destruction, but something that feels a lot more grand and more like this dreadful phenomenon that occurred in the world of this series. We see how all kinds of people of various backgrounds respond to the Bosanian invasion, and in turn you have a world that feels very tangible, very alive. The stakes are absolutely present from the get-go, and the show lingers on that through the entire duration of its run. Now, yes, the show is technically Monster of the Week. I mean, this was the age of the TV magazine, where reruns and the internet weren't even thought about as concepts. But a lot of these villains still find themselves weaved into this big narrative. Their appearance feels natural in how the story progresses, and it's always logical whenever the Bosanians proceed with their plans that result in sending one of their beast fighters. They all have a place that's complemented by the writing itself. Speaking of the writing, I really want to talk about Prince Heinel. I don't think I've seen such a nuanced depiction of a very flawed yet irredeemable villain. A lot of the themes in Voltes 5 deal with injustice, and for the Bosanians, some of their drama pertains to the idea of horns being used as a sort of status symbol, which in itself has a connotation that's rooted in both spiritualism and social prejudice. Because the Bosonians have these horns, they are under the belief that they've been chosen by some higher power they choose to place their faith in, to lead their people into a new generation of prosperity, but by force and at the expense of other worlds. So when you have the humans, these supposed lesser life forms, stand up to this race and thwart every single one of their plans, Heinel, who is in charge of this mission, grows to become more impulsive and irrational, to where over time his well-being starts to deteriorate, and we see the effect it's having on those around him. We see torture, enslavement, abduction, assassination, and a horrifying mix from time to time. We see how it's straining his relationship with Catherine. He starts to be seen as unfit for a leader in the eyes of his superiors. People actually start to oppose his authority from within, and no matter what, Heinel continues to persist because deep down, he feels that total domination is his birthright, and he will not let anyone else take it away from him. It's oddly a very realistic depiction of a fascist character without getting too lost in letting the viewer know that this guy is evil, and just allows the story to speak for itself. I'll just leave it there because continuing would mean going into very, very heavy spoilers, but I absolutely want to note how the voice acting in this show is easily one of the strongest things that do such an incredible job selling the drama. You feel the energy and passion behind these characters, like the voice acting really connects with your soul. Even if you're not a fan of this era or style of Japanese animation, you will be sold on the voice acting. It's on par with something like Fist of the North Star's voice acting, I'd say. I also like the ancient European attire and architecture that's associated with the Bosonians, as their physical appearances harken back to dragons, which is interesting as Voltes 5's motif is similar to that of a ninja. It brings an air of mysticism to their conflict, as if to point out that evil has existed for entire generations, and that from its shadows, it can be faced with the unity of many. And aside from that, the action in this show is portrayed wonderfully. Not only is there a difference in animation that allows for more fluent movement thanks to the success of Combatler, but the choreography in itself is very dynamic, executed with lots of complexity. This in turn makes the conflict in Voltes come off as being a lot more believable, thus making the tension feel more real. There's so much about this show to unpack that I'm really sad to say that I don't think I'm doing this show any justice in this format. Like, my expectations were blasted into nothingness. Voltes 5 takes everything that was great about Combatler and somehow makes it even better. Outside of the brilliant character writing, the immense tension, and how the show goes on about the idea of how war and conflict change people over time, it's also a very hopeful series, despite how dark it gets. I know I haven't talked too much about it because, again, spoilers, but the direction the show takes about halfway through makes for some of the most emotionally powerful pieces of storytelling I've got to experience. What Voltes 5 turns into during its run hit so hard that it really makes it one of the most absolute best anime of all time in my book. As of now, I have to say it's my favorite mecha, but I still have Daimos to get through, so I'm very curious about that. Before I wrap this up, I want to acknowledge that Voltes 5 has a very dedicated following in the Philippines. There was a point in time where the Filipino government tried to ban the show for being a potential negative influence on children, and all of a sudden, it became this big cultural revolution for the nation. They don't play around when it comes to Voltes 5. The Philippines even made their own live-action drama series based on Voltes 5. This country's dedication and appreciation for Voltes is on par with Latin America's love for Dragon Ball and China's love for Ultraman Tiga. If you know, you know. Want to shout out my channel? That's going to be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for watching. Want to shout out my channel members and my supporters on Patreon. If you like what you see and want to get early access to videos and exclusive content, click the link below. Other than that, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy, everyone.